something's gone wrong. For all our vigilance and battle scars over the Bill of Rights, have we let the flame of freedom's torch grow cold? Because there can be no torch to pass where there's no flame.
Freedom has only one enemy it cannot defeat, and that is negligence. So your presence here, now, today, is an act of reverence. Of all man's works beneath the heavens, none shines brighter than our Constitution. I think Jefferson and Paine, Adams, Madison, Mason, Franklin, I think they're looking down right now at us. I think they understand what we're trying to do, what we strive to do. Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Good evening, everybody. This is Joe Joseph. Welcome to another exciting edition of Freedomlink Radio on the 6th of January 2011. My co-host tonight, as usual, the incredible A.C. Griffith. Griff, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Radio Shack phone sounding as wonderful as usual.
Thank you.
And finally, my cohort in crime, John King. Uncle Johnny.
I be here.
Outstanding, my friend. Tonight our special guest, folks, is Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster. Bob Chapman, of course, you all know. You see him on Alex Jones quite often. He makes his rounds around the radio circuit, and we are absolutely honored to have him here tonight. But before we get to Mr. Chapman, I just wanted to say that we've got a very, very interesting show ahead, not only from the aspect of the economy, but in the second hour of the broadcast, we'll be going over the interesting bird phenomenon that's been happening not only in Arkansas but in Sweden, and some of the ideas and theories behind what could be causing that. So all that and more coming up in the 2 hours of Freedom Link Radio tonight. And with that said, Griff, before I bring on Bob, I just wanted to say that there's been a lot of interesting economic news in the media, and really in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of difference, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to ask Bob questions tonight about the economy.
Me too.
I think all of these people in Washington are lying. I think the Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats. You're not going to get the truth out of any of them, and the Titanic is going down by the hour.
You know, it's funny, Griff. It's like I was telling you earlier. People are going to be people. They're all creatures of free will, but free will does not necessarily mean that the intelligence accompanies the free will. And that goes for everybody. I mean, we all have our moments. Don't get me wrong, but I caught myself the other day or yesterday listening to the new Speaker of the House, John Boehner, and how they're going to adhere to the Constitution, and they're reading it aloud in Congress, and every bill is going to be associated with some sort of constitutional relevance. They have to prove that what they're doing is constitutional. And, for a split second, it got me. I'm like, oh, man, maybe things are going to change for the better. All right, And then reality set in. And really, if you take a look at the past, we've heard this all before. And not quite to the level that we've heard now. I mean, this is grade A BS that we're hearing right now. And what's interesting is the fact that they know the ship is sinking, but boy, they can put on a smile and they can look determined and ready to fix things all they want. But when the patient's terminal, it's one of those things. Let's make the patient feel as good as possible in its final days and make him comfortable. So right now, I kind of feel like we're in hospice care, if you will.
Well, Joe, you can read the Bible 10 times unless you know what it means, you're not going to understand it, okay? And you read the Constitution in an open session of Congress. If you don't know what it means, you're not going to understand it. And considering that our politicians are brain dead and have their sphincter, the Constitution doesn't come in picture pages form, so it does us no good.
You're breaking up, my man.
I think that's AM/FM sideband.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I liken it to a transmission security key. See, he's encrypting his audio so that.
Does he do that with his tongue?
I don't know.
Mrs. King knows the answer to that, Greg.
Joe, what are the plans to improve the audio?
Well, the plans are, over the weekend, we're going to be doing some testing in regards to our 96K stream. And then starting next Thursday, the plan is to go ahead and move over to the Intel Hub News Network. Now, granted, we'll still be broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio, but I will not be monitoring the chat room at that point on Blog Talk Radio. What we will be doing, though, is monitoring the chat room over at the Intel Hub News Network and taking full advantage of the 96K stream that's over there. And that's the plan as it stands right now. It just all depends on how testing goes this weekend and if we can overcome the technical challenges involved in setting it up. But I'm fairly confident that we can do that.
Are we the only ones having this audio problem on the network here?
No, it's. Oh, you mean like on Blog Talk? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I just don't know. I really don't know. And without further ado, folks, I would like to bring on Bob Chapman. So, Bob, are you there?
I'm not here.
You're not here.
I'm in heaven, and I'm calling down from heaven.
Hot diggity doggity. Well, I'll tell you what. How is heaven anyway?
Actually, it's very boring. They don't have good golf courses, and they don't allow the women to wear string bikinis.
Now, isn't that something? I
Black robes.
I thought for sure it would be bikinis. See, I got it all wrong.
No, you've got it wrong. It's the Muslims when they go there, and they have the 70 virgins, and they all have string bikinis. You got it mixed up.
What do you say to that, Joe?
All I can say is that it doesn't give me much to look forward to there, Bob. That's all.
Well, look, sometimes, when I was a kid, all the Irish Catholics used to say, hell is upon earth. What you're living here now is hell. Mm-hmm. And because they had it so hard, like so many immigrants, and all immigrants in countries go through that historically. In fact, some of them come as slaves. And but anyway.
Well, let's get on the economy, Bob. I got this interesting stat I want to bring up to you right off the bat because it's kind of troubling to me, and I want to get your take on this.
Stat me.
I'm going to stat you right now. It's the Federal Reserve this year is slated to buy up 60% of our debt. 60%.
So what's wrong with that?
Well,
I mean, they're bankrupt. The books show a loss of $1.3 trillion. And 60% of all our debt, how much is that? If you take in the treasuries and Fannie and Freddie, mm-hmm. and maybe even some toxic garbage, you might look at about $1.6 trillion.
Oh, is that all?
Trillion what?
Hey, I got to tell you a story on how they're going to try to offset it.
Okay.
They're such creepy people, and they think they outsmart everybody. Well, I got news for them. I'm smart, too. And for their edification, and I know they listen to all my programs, I was accepted to Harvard University when I was in 9th grade. And much to their chagrin, I refused to go. I went to Northeastern, which is the People's School in Boston, like Boston University is too.
Yep.
And so I went there because I didn't fit. I just didn't fit. Anyway, let me tell you what they're going to do. And this has only been alluded to in the media, not much talk about it. And you wouldn't hear about it otherwise. 6 years ago, the Senate and the House passed legislation on the proviso the transnational conglomerates would create jobs. And so they allowed them to bring back from their offshore locations, such as the Cayman Islands and Bermuda and so on, to bring back their profits, which they legally had offshore. It's part of legislation that was passed earlier. And the reason it was passed is that corporate taxes in America are higher than they are in other countries, and that's true. And they wanted a level playing field. So they got all this money offshore, and so they bring back $362 billion.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't create any jobs, and that robbed the American Treasury of $108.5 billion. Now here they are again at a secret meeting in the White House, and there were 10 or 12 of them, whatever, and they were there talking to the president and said either through legislation or maybe an executive order, let's do it again. And last time what they did with the money was they took the money and they bought their stocks, which are good quality companies, and either S&P 500 or Dow Jones Industrial Average. And they made their stocks go up. They made the Dow and the S&P go up. And then they took their options and exercised them and made billions of dollars. Plus, the shareholders got fat because they had all this money come into their treasury, and their dividends went up and their stock went up. Everybody was happy, except the American taxpayer. So this time around, instead of paying 35%, they paid 5.25% tax. This is the ultimate sweetheart deal, and that's why the Treasury lost $108.5 billion. Now, this time, they want to bring back in, and I hope you're sitting down, $1.9 trillion. They're going to do the same thing they did last time, only they're also going to buy treasuries, agencies. For those of you who don't know, agencies are the bonds of Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie, and FHA. Now, how much of that they're going to spend in the market and how much on those bond instruments, I don't know. But they want the same 5.25% deal. And this will rob the American Treasury of $650 billion. Now, you talk about chutzpah. I mean, these people are professional crooks. So that's how they, and the reason I brought this up, that's how they expect that the Fed won't have to come up with as much money to buy the treasuries, the agencies, and the garbage.
Let me ask you this, Bob. Knowing that the Federal Reserve is a gigantic scam job, if you will, and that, you know, when we talk about them distributing the money to the banks, all they're really doing is just typing some numbers in on a keyboard and boop, hitting send, and off it goes, right? So it's really not about printing money out of thin air now. Now it's just about creating numbers out of thin air.
That's right.
And when we get down to the bare bones nitty-gritty of monetary policy and what money is, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm new to researching this stuff, but money is pretty much a means of representing the amount of work that you do in exchange for a good or a service, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So.
Mhm.
So. Like
Joe,
what you'll hear.
It's only that when it's on the side of the people and the government.
Exactly
it's not
right.
that way when it's on the side of the Fed.
Oh no, and you're totally right there. But I guess my question to you is, Bob, how do we, as John Q. Public, make a statement or do something to affect change to this big, nasty, bloated beast of a system that's currently in place? I mean, do we wait for it to crash, or is there something that we can do now to affect change in the short term?
Well, the only way through the system that you can affect change is through the Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had an election, and normally 6% of incumbents are defeated. 14% were defeated, including those who chose not to run, some of whom would have been defeated anyway, and some of whom just wanted to get out of Dodge. And that's the way you do it. Unfortunately, the American public, about 55% of them are dumb, ill-educated, and this is true in every country. And they think they know it all, and they don't know very much, really. And so we have a problem in the democratic process because these kinds of people are easily deceived by these politicians who not only are professional criminals, most of them, but also they're very, very good at what they do, conning people. And so what they did was they listened to the politicians and reelected too many of them, and we're back where we were at square one. So with that in mind, I say I don't think you're going to be able to change things in the system by doing it legally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to degenerate to a point where there's going to be revolution. I don't see any other way around it unless people get awful smart awful fast. And I don't see any hope of it. You know, I've been involved in politics since, 64 years. I was around 9 years old. I used to work in Tip O'Neill's campaigns in Cambridge.
Really?
Remember Tip O'Neill? Yeah.
Absolutely, I remember.
I remember the first time I met him. He was single, and he was sitting on the edge of his bed. It was like an army cot, and he was sitting there with a pair of shorts on. Big, fat, ugly guy, and the guy that was with me was his nephew, and this guy is still alive. Of course, Tip has gone to the great beyond, and he says to me, "Oh, two wonderful little Irish boys." Of course, we were about 17. What were we? About 15, 16, 17. And I'll never forget it. But anyway, he was a nice guy, but he didn't do any good for America.
No.
I'll just leave it at that. But I started in politics as a child, and so I know how it works, especially in a city like Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned real fast. In the same year, I learned that in the city in which I lived, there were 364 policemen, and a policeman on that force who went to school, my mother, high school, grade school too, told me one day, there's only 3 policemen on the force who aren't on the take. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no. He said, that's the truth. He said, I wouldn't tell you an untruth. And so anyway, that's how I learned real fast that things were not the way they seemed to be.
Oh, exactly right. I mean, it's been that way for a long time now. Whether in anywhere that you have men in position of power, you're going to have corruption. I mean, it's the human condition, and it's unavoidable, you know. But like I was saying at the beginning of the show, you listen to John Boehner, the new Speaker of the House, and talking and we're going to respect the Constitution, we're going to make the government more accountable, more open, blah 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 blah. And I want to believe him, but the problem is there's just been too long of a track record of deceit and deception and betrayal to the American people that I just can't believe it. Not only that, it's all smoke and mirrors, because even if that's the true intention of the Republican Party and Mr. Boehner in the House of Representatives, they still don't have near the support in the Senate needed to do anything of importance, and that's where I lose faith. Not to mention the fact that it's just like I said, it's all a smokescreen anyway. So how do you see 2011 shaping up, Bob, as far as say inflation is concerned, unemployment, and what can our listeners expect in the next 12 months?
Nothing.
Geez, that's great. So where's this heaven place again?
Well, they tell me it's way up in the sky someplace. But anyway, no, nothing's going to change, because you're going to have a Congress that's locked. They're not going to pass much, if any, legislation until we see who is on the take and who isn't in the new group. And we won't know until April, March, somewhere in there. And if very few of them get on the take, then we get a shot. And if most of them are on the take, we don't have a shot. And then it's to the streets.
Do you see inflation
Another thing
going?
too is, let me tell you the giveaway.
Sure.
The real giveaway was yesterday, and the ascendancy of Mr. Boehner to the head of the Speaker for the House Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And he's up there and he's taking this gavel from that woman, whatever her name is, Nazi Pelosi or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And she hung a kiss on him. I thought she was going to suck his tongue right out of his head. I couldn't believe it. Now, normally in that kind of a thing, if you know each other and you have camaraderie, even though you're in different parties, you give a peck on the cheek. I think she was going to bite his tongue off. Anyway, he didn't seem to mind it at all. He was smiling. He thought it was wonderful. And that told me one thing. There's not a dime's worth of difference between the two of them, and case closed.
Exactly right. It's all, again, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's an act. What you see in the news, in the media, everything else, they're great actors, but they're going to dinner together after work. They're going to have drinks. That's what they do.
They're probably exchanging the same prostitutes for all we know.
You never know. But I'd wager to say you're probably right. And it's
incredible. And in Washington is very famous for bordellos, both for men and women, because they have an unusually high amount of homosexuals in Washington, and so they have both.
Griff,
and you don't hear much about the latter.
Can you believe that, Griff? There's a high amount of homosexuals in Washington, D.C.
Well, I wanted to
and there
admit
always
tonight
has been
that I'm Homo sapien. What do you think of that?
Homo sapien.
What do you think of that?
Wait a minute. I thought you were Pithecanthropus erectus.
Only on the weekends.
Now tell me, what is that? Do you know?
I haven't a clue, Bob.
I'd be afraid of it.
It is man who has just begun to walk on two legs, but his arms are still dangling. Pithecanthropus erectus, man standing. You could say Homo erectus as well.
Mm-hmm.
I had 4 years of Latin, so I get you beat.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
What you said a few minutes ago, I want to ask you: do you believe that the Congress could do anything to turn our financial plight around if they wanted to? I don't think they
sure.
could.
I think they could. It all depends on how many of the new
people. How would they do that?
Well, I think the first thing would be to support Ron Paul in his audit of the Federal Reserve by subpoena if necessary.
Well, that would show a greater loss than we have now.
Yeah, that's true, but it would expose all of the machinations that they won't tell you about that they're up to. all the swaps that you never hear about.
Bob, what would that really reveal? I mean, because you say they've got plenty of time. They know this is coming down the pipe. They know it's coming down the pipe. And so what can we possibly learn for the real type of information? You know what I mean? What is important to learn out of it?
Your audio is breaking up, Joe.
I don't know why, but you're breaking up badly.
Okay.
But I did understand what you said, and I look. This is like this last stage out of Yuma, and we got John Carradine in the carriage, and riding shotgun we got a guy named John Wayne, and this is our last shot. If these people roll on us and go with the enemy, there's no way back. There will be revolution. There's no other way to stop these people. They own the court. They own everything. They buy everybody. They have an endless source of wealth. The Federal Reserve is owned by private banks, Morgan, Goldman, Citi, etc. Who owns them? The royal families of Europe. That's what it's all about. It's all about the Illuminati and their control of the world. And they're deliberately taking down the system at their own pace because they want to get rid of population. They want to bring Europeans and Americans to their knees financially and economically to force them to accept world government. And that's what this is all about. Not politics and the interplay. That game for us is over. They've already bought everybody except a handful that they don't care about, like Ron Paul, etc. And they're going to do what they want to do until they can't do it anymore. And I tell all of them, because they listen to every program I'm on, start reading French history in 1788 and zero in on July the 14th, 1789. And then you're going to find out what's going to happen to you. And this time, it's no more Mr. Nice Guy.
The guillotine.
Well, Bob, I think that when Prince Charles's car got attacked over there in London, it should have sent a strong message to the European royals as well as the Illuminati as to what's ahead for them if this bastardizing of the system continues.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and that's a very cogent observation. And I came up with the same feeling because I know Charles. I've talked to him. I knew Diane, and I know his father. I've never met his mother, and quite frankly, I don't desire to. And it was an extremely significant event. I mean, the people who were demonstrating, who pelted his car, they were the finest England have to offer in universities. I mean, these people weren't a bunch of peckerheads. They weren't people who ran in gangs to soccer games and things like that. These are well-educated people from decent, if not substantial families. And they'd had enough. It's not only that they were demonstrating in behalf of a tripling in the cost of going to university. They were also demonstrating that their grandmother and grandfather didn't have enough to eat, that costs were going through the roof, the country was broke, et cetera, et cetera. And so your point is extraordinarily well taken. If I were them, I'd have it coming down both legs. But they don't get it. They are so arrogant. They have gone through this before, and they say, well, we can survive. We can do anything we want. And we have the same tenor of appearance and thought process with the pukes who run our government, the Rockefellers and so on and so forth. And they're going to continue that way until they wake up one morning and 100,000 people have surrounded New York City, and they're dragging these bankers and their families out and chopping their heads off. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And a lot of people have tried to avoid this, myself included. But they they don't get it, and the public doesn't get it in general. And revolutions are started by between 5 and 15% of the population. And that's the way it's going to be again. You know, my broadcasts are worldwide. I get letters every day from everywhere you can think of. We have subscribers all over the world. And they tell me stories you wouldn't believe. And they sound very much like your stories and my story as an American. They get the same problems. The same group of thugs running around in $4,000 suits who think sociopathically they can do anything they want. And so that's what you're dealing with. People who are megalomaniacs.
Well, Bob, the next time you have a chance to talk to Prince Charles, I personally would be interested to know if he, during the rioting, when his car was being attacked, if he actually did get the chance to lay a big brown royal egg in his shorts.
Well, I don't. Charles is a lot of things, but he's not gutless. And I've seen him play a lot of, what do they call it? Polo. And so he mixes it up with the best. Don't expect these people to roll over and play dead. He's not a gutless person, and neither are the other men in the family. But
well, there's
these
a big
royals,
difference in playing polo with a bunch of royal blue bloods and snobs than there is fighting a crowd of pissed off college people.
Well, there was a fellow named Montague, a Brit, who was running the occupation of Northern Ireland, of which there was problems that they had with the IRA. And the IRA not only killed him and dismembered him, but they blew the boat up as a warning to the royal family, you keep on doing this and you're next.
And you brought up a good point.
And Montague was known as, what was it, Montague of Burma or something like that. He had fought in the Second World War quite valiantly. But he screwed with the wrong Irishman.
You made a very good point, and you lead into my next comment, which is I believe that by the end of next summer, this summer coming, 2011, that things will be so bad that there will either be an Illuminati or a banker that will be scooped up and have the tar beat out of him, if not have his life taken from him, just be beat to death from the rage and anger that these people have. And I am proclaiming that after Valentine's Day is when it's going to get really touchy here in the States. What's your comment or on that?
You may be premature. It's coming. I can't give it timing, but I don't think it's going to come that quickly. Usually what happens, now let's go back to the 1930s. During the 30s, we had a terrible unemployment problem. And people are always asking me, what was unemployment? At the height of the unemployment during the 1930s, U3, and I hope you all know what that is, short-term unemployment, was 25.2%. Right now it's 9.8%. U6, which is a combination of U1, 2, 3, 4, 5, was 37.6%. Now they proclaim it's 17%. And of course they did not have at that time the birth-death ratio, the birth of and the death of businesses, where the government just simply guesses and creates bogus numbers. And if you take that out, you have 22 and 3/8% right now.
So then we're right there.
We're about halfway there. So it's got to get more nasty. And so the amount of money that they're pumping in might help unemployment a wee bit, maybe take it down to 20%. But it has to get worse. And the reason I say that is that unemployment went down to, in 1940, 16.4% from 17.2% in 1939. And so, we were staring 1941 in the face. The Americans didn't know that their government had arranged for the Japanese to bomb Pearl Harbor. They did that by lining all their ships up and tempting the Japanese to come in. They had the Japanese diplomatic code broken in 1937. And how do I know that? Because it was declassified in 1967, and I was in counterintelligence and learned it in 1954. So we had a war on command, and that's what they're going to do again. So we got to get worse. So it's not going to happen in several months, maybe 2 or 3 years, the degenerative process, because the money that they're putting into the system is going to Wall Street and banking.
Sure.
None of it's going down below. It just isn't going to help. The $862 billion that was the pork added to the new tax bill, which is the extension of the Bush tax cuts, which they had to put through. Otherwise, the economy would have collapsed. And that's how bad it is. But things got to get worse. You got to have enough people really mad that are going to go out and say, I have got nothing to lose. I lost my home, my job, my vehicles, and my 2 children, my wife and I. We have 2 trolleys from the supermarket, and all of our goods are in there. And one of us has to stay guard over them under the bridge every night with the AK-47 and the 2,000 rounds of ammo I've got. And that's going to kick it off. And if these slobs in New York, Washington, London, Paris, Frankfurt think they're going to get away with it, they're crazy.
No, you're right, Bob. And when we come back from break, we're going to continue our talk with Bob Chapman, so everybody stay tuned. This is Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Don't go away, anybody. Lots left to talk about.
I saw my best friend tonight, oh, don't push me too hard.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit free2prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the P.A. Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
You won't walk with me. I'm bound to come down with a new style. Rock and roll is up known as reggae music. Gonna come down with the new lyrics, 'cause it just ain't no thing. Oh, I said
Well, we're back, folks, with our special guest, Bob Chapman, the international forecaster, and my co-hosts, A.C. Griffith and John King. We're talking about the economy tonight in the first hour, and Griff, you haven't said too much, so I'm going to let you take over from here and talk to Bob. So without further ado, go ahead, my man.
Thank you, Joe. Bob, I want to tell you how I'm just tickled and proud of you tonight for laying it on the line like you did. Not too many people would have done that in your position. I wanted to ask you a sensitive question. I don't mean to lead you into a minefield. Answer it any way you can, or don't answer it if you choose not to. But I know that a lot of deep pockets in Europe and Saudi Arabia and other countries are really ticked off at the United States and the Obama and the Bush and Clinton administrations for not allowing their portions, their investments, their profits out of the $27 trillion to come back to them. And I understand that's why Obama recently signed the executive order allowing Interpol to come into the United States. And I also understand they hit the Bank of America here in Richmond first, demanding explanations about the $4.5 trillion that was lifted by the feds out of the bank and sent up to J.P. Morgan Chase. As far as I know, many of those countries are still ticked off at the United States and still are demanding their profits and their money out of that original investment. Do you know anything about that? Any comment at all?
No, I don't, but I do know this, that most of these entities were created by the Illuminists. If you look back into the result of World War I in the Middle East, you'll find that the people who are now aligned with the Illuminists were people who, generally speaking, fought against their own governments to take control and then marshal their forces versus the Turkish Empire, which is very powerful at the time, and who were allies of the Germans during World War I. That was starkly pointed out in Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence, unfortunately, was backstabbed, for lack of a better term, and was disgusted with what the French in particular, along with the British, had done to the native peoples of the Middle East. So deals were cut with people who owed their existence to the European powers. So they're going to think twice, and many more times perhaps, about saying, no, I want my money back. With these people, 5 or 10 billion is chump change. You got to think in terms of trillions. And they're not going to let their ego get in their way in order to feel good about the hand that they've been dealt, which sucks. But the people who are in charge, they do what they want to do. And so nothing is going to happen in those nations which is going to be anti-European or anti-American until the bottom's fallen out, and then they'll move, if at all. Because they know, we know who they are. They're nothing but a bunch of bandits, criminals, just like the people they're working for in the royal houses of Europe and the people who run the United States. So I don't expect any movement from them until the controlling parties are crippled. And that will come. And it'll be payback for them. It's been almost 100 years. And they got their just desserts, which was fame, fortune, and if you may, 70 virgins or whatever. And they're happy about that. But the point is, it's power. And they expected more, and they're still treated like vassal states, particularly by the British.
We know that right after the story printed the names of the employees at Troutman Sanders law firm, the one that broke the $4.5 trillion loose from Bank of America and gave it to the Fed, even though it was legally in Wanta's name. Right after that, Story was poisoned to shut him up. And we also know that Troutman in England went after Story and made him back up a little bit. There is an awful lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, manipulating and pressures and so on. What you say, I agree with what you say. I think it's coming, and the only thing we can do as people is to protect ourselves and our families with food and supplies, and try to educate and develop a new mindset.
You're right, Griff.
I think this is going to evolve over the next several years, and things like what you're talking about will come out later. They won't come out at the beginning because they're too deeply buried. I mean, these people are masters of psy warfare, brainwashing, propaganda. They got the public befuddled in every country, more or less. And this movement of talk radio and the Internet is relatively new. And they think they know how to handle it, and they don't. They're getting the crap kicked out of them, actually. But those kinds of scandals are going to come out way long into the future. They're not going to pop up at first. What's going to pop up at first is things like, well, why didn't we have tariffs? Why didn't we protect our industries and our service organizations and all these jobs in America? 8.5 million lost, and including 42,400 businesses that left the country. And that's going to be a starting point. And it's going to begin with tariffs. And New York and Washington are going to go ballistic.
Yes.
And
yes.
That's a time to go after them.
Yeah.
I want to tell you one other thing, Bob. I see there was $207 billion owed in taxes to the state of Virginia because Wanta had an operation in Virginia. And it's in the court documents. $207 billion in taxes owed to the state of Virginia. So I spoke to a principal at Congressman Eric Cantor's office about that $207 billion. What a windfall that would be for the state of Virginia. It would be the richest state in the United States, in North America. And he said to me, that money is all tied up. It's not worth going after.
Well,
Can
he
you
knew
believe
already.
that? Can you believe that? He said that to me. $207 billion.
Yeah, he knew the story.
They're all phonies. They own the courts from the bottom all the way up. And, I lived in L.A. for 36 years. And one of my best friends was in the L.A. District Attorney's office. He was a top. He took 24 cases, murder 1. He never lost. And I would go out with judges, to football games, high school, stuff like that. And they were drug addicts, alcoholics, perverts. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, these people are appointed as federal district judges, and they act like this, and they live like this. So that's the kind of people you're dealing with. Not all of them, but all too many of them.
I know. I know.
So don't expect any
well
judgment that's positive in the system. The system doesn't work.
Right, it's broken. Exactly right. So let me ask you this, because I got a question from the chat room, and I wanted to relay it to you, Bob. And the question is, Bob, what do you think the chances are of there being a military coup to take back the government?
Not now, later, and excellent. I do a show on Thursdays in the afternoon at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time called The Marine Disquisition. I've done it for 5 years. On Blog Talk Radio, it's 5 times more popular than anything that's on the air in that venue. I don't know what is it, 335 stations or whatever it is. And I talk to officers, that's field grade and down.
Mm-hmm.
I've never talked to a general, did talk to an admiral. And hundreds of non-coms, gunnery sergeants, people like that. And I wasn't in the Marine Corps, I was in the Army. And they are on our side, active and retired. They are on our side, I promise you. And the minute the hits the fan, we go to the military and say, how can we help? You're on our side, we want you. And there's thousands of us here. We got our own ammo and we got our own weapons. Which direction do we march in? And that's what America's got to do. Because the military doesn't stand a chance. 450 million weapons, 80 million veterans, 40 million veterans who have been in combat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does the military really want to tangle with these people? I don't think so.
I sure hope not.
And so what do? They have a coup, and they tell the Pentagon, on the plane and get out of town. Go over and see the Queen or something and don't come back. Then they round up all these characters on Wall Street and in banking and insurance and the rest of them, and they take them out and they try them and they hang them. And they take all of their assets and put it in the public treasury from their entire families. I mean, just as an example, look what Madoff did. He shoveled off all his wealth to his brothers and his friends and blah, blah, and they're retrieving it all.
Man, he's a dog. Absolute dog.
And you know why he's a dog? More than anything else, he betrayed his own people.
Yeah.
There is no traitor, no evil person more evil than that.
Well, he most certainly did that, not to mention the fact all the people he fleeced. Boy, I've seen a lot of news pieces on that particular subject, where you have people 85 years old greeting at Walmart now, can't stand up on their own, but they're there greeting at Walmart. They have no income outside of Social Security because it's all gone. Their retirement's dried up, gone, fizzled away. And this is just a start. I mean, Madoff was a Ponzi scheme. That's great. But wait till all these other schemes, that Wall Street schemes, start to crumble. And then what? It's crazy.
Why do you have a criminal trial in a court where all you have is attorneys and bailiffs?
Mm-hmm.
You have it because you're hiding something. There was a massive operation. It was a CIA con, and the Mossad was involved in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why. There were hundreds of people involved. He went to jail and sent a few other people to jail, and that'll be the end of it. All the stolen money has gone off into space someplace. And that's why they operate. Look at the Nugan hand scandal. Do you remember that in the 1980s?
No.
Well, Nugent and Hand were Australians, and they were chosen because of their criminal activities to front for a CIA operation of laundering money and investing money. And most of its victims were military people, which to me is hard to believe. Well, anyway, the whole thing blew up. Everybody lost their money. And I don't know whether it was Nugent or Hand, committed suicide. He shot himself 3 times in the back of the head. And the other guy went to federal prison in Hawaii or something, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. I don't know whatever happened to him. And they were sacrificed. But the scam made billions of dollars. And the CIA does this all the time. They got another one there with it's pending. They were laundering drug money for drug dealers in Central and South America. They pull this crap all the time. I mean, you see this war going on in Mexico along the border.
Right.
What they're doing is the Mexican government, and this is the PAN party under Calderon, what they're doing is they're trying to eliminate all the small traffickers so that the large traffickers can cut a deal with not only the PAN party but others. And I know a lot of these people, incidentally, so I know what I'm talking about. And maybe I shouldn't be talking about it. And the government's going to change this year. There's going to be an election. There isn't a ghost of a chance that PAN will get reelected to the executive office. And the Chamber of Deputies and the Senators already are PRI people, which is called PRI in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to sit down with the drug dealers and they're going to say, look, let's go back to what we were doing before. No kidnappings, no murders, no fighting among yourselves. You bring the arguments to us, and you bring the $30 billion every year into the country, second largest amount of money coming into Mexico each year. And we'll all live happily ever after and get rich. Now, the reason that Calderon did what he did is he's working with the U.S. CIA and the DEA to take over the drug business. That's what it's all about.
Pretty lucrative. It's
$30 billion a year?
Yeah, it's lucrative. Why not?
I mean, even if you get $10 million a year, it'd be pretty good.
Heck yeah.
And everybody knows what's going on.
I got one final question for you, Bob, before you go tonight. A question from the chat room is, what do you see as far as the food supply or even the commodities market here in the coming months and year ahead?
Prices will double this year or more.
Double?
For food. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now,
and that's just for the United States, and Europe's going to be worse. There's many nations like Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, Uruguay, Chile, Panama, Costa Rica, and Mexico. They all produce their own food. They can produce enough to live on. And Mexico, of course, is blessed with oil. And they'll start deep drilling one of these days. And when that happens, there'll be more prosperity. Mexico's problem has been there's just too many people. And so they sent them north, and so the Americas got them now. But the rest of the world is not going to be as negatively affected by the cost of food as America. Do you know that 1/3 of the corn crop goes into ethanol? If that isn't,
that's something else. It really is.
If that isn't euthanasia for the third world, I don't know what is.
Right.
And it's dreadful. And those kind of things are going to continue. And but the United States and Europe, especially Europe, are going to suffer horrible food prices. And they're going to be able to pay it more or less. But it's a third world. They're all going to die.
Incredible. Well, Bob, thanks for coming on tonight. I really do appreciate it. And I guess we'll talk again next month, huh?
You got it.
Outstanding.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. It's a joy being on, and I want to thank everybody for listening, and I hope we've been able to impart some important things that will help them in their life.
Yeah, me too. Folks, when we come back, we're going to start talking about the incredible bird crisis going on in Arkansas and Sweden, and much more. We'll be taking your phone calls, your questions, your comments. Stay tuned.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit free2prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the PA Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of Freedomlink Radio. Before we get started in our second hour, I'd like to bring on John King for King's Court. John, you're on, my friend. Go ahead. Take it away.
Thanks, Joe. First, I would like to thank the distractors and the disinfo agents on a game well played. But I am ready to make my next move. Nibiru and Planet X is only a distraction, folks, from reality. The effects of the polar shift and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions is a natural occurrence on the planet. The reason why it's happening in mass is now due to recent solar activity as well as Earth radiating across the galactic center. The Earth's core is molten nickel iron. It's spinning at approximately 2,600 miles per hour. The core is where the Earth gets its magnetic field. The next layer out is the core, and it's not liquid, nor is it a solid, more or less like molasses in January. Magma is formed in the third layer, known as the mantle, and it's not liquid nor a solid, but like jello. And then you have the moho layer, and then the crust. The moon helps balance out the spin. Without the moon, the Earth would spin out of control with no defined direction. It's the increased solar activity in the EMF wave radiation that is causing the heating of all the planet's atmospheres. The sun's influence is 2 times the distance of Pluto. This explanation explains why all the planets are heating up, not because of greenhouse gases coming out from behind my Dodge. The molten core is being pushed at a different angle, causing the core to spin slightly at a different angle, and the mantle, like jello, tries to compensate for the difference in directional spin and moves. This creates earthquakes on the Earth as well as volcanic eruptions. That, too, is why you're getting cracks in the Earth's crust. This is all caused by the orbit of the Sun throughout the Milky Way galaxy, and it is natural, nothing more. What we really need to do right now is hold our politicians accountable and hold our banks to the rules, regulations, and laws. It is only because the people no longer enforce the rules and regulations and laws that the banks are getting away with raping your savings and stealing what's yours. Only until we as a people stand up together and say no more will this stop. It's time to prepare yourself and family. Beans, bullets, toilet paper, and tampons. And if possible, stock up on gold and silver. In my humble opinion, you should learn to grow your own money. When the economy does collapse, and it will, it's only a matter of time, the new money will be barter items. And those providing comfort to the masses will be highly prized in this economic collapse as it was in 1929 during the last economic collapse. Research Depression-era survival. Looked to the unlearned past to see your future. Back to you, Joe and Griff.
Well, thank you, Johnny John. Folks, the number to call, 877-598-8549. And for this hour, I would like to make it an open forum, so anybody that wants to call in and sound off on this topic, I would greatly appreciate it, seeing as how I do not know what I'm talking about on it. But I'm going to give it my best shot here and try and make some sense out of it. But anyway, Griff, birds flying through the air and falling out of the sky dead, and a certain species at that. I mean, they were blackbirds, in Arkansas, and the same thing in Sweden, only it was the form of blackbird indigenous to Sweden. So what do you think about that, Griff Scaler?
Well, one of the government officials in Arkansas said he had the answer. It was firecrackers that shocked the birds so bad that they fell out of the sky.
Yes, I heard that. Fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
That's the government. Can you believe things like that? I wouldn't be surprised if somebody would say that it was the chemtrail busters radiating argon energy that the birds flew into. Have you ever heard about that? Did you
about
know
Argon? Yeah, and the Argonite. Yeah, absolutely.
There was some guy
Big
building chemtrail busters, and he said you would aim it at the clouds, and the argon energy coming out of the front end of it would dissipate the chemtrails. And he was selling them for like $300 a piece, and people were buying them all over the country. Can you believe that?
Oh, absolutely, man. There's a sucker around every corner, you know.
Yes.
And that's just. But here's the thing: we're seeing a big increase. Let's just say in the last year, we had that big sea life kill down in John. What was it? Uruguay or Brazil? Something like that. I think it was.
Yeah, South American countries.
Yeah.
They're also getting crabs washed up on shore over in Europe now, mainly England. Thousands of crabs.
Right. So this isn't just blackbirds. We're seeing a lot of things here, and it makes me wonder, you know. Let me throw this out. And again, folks, number to call, 877-598-8549. Sound off on this. Do you think the food chain's breaking down, Griff? I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, it would seem one of the reports said the birds suffered blunt trauma, and that would lend to the scalar idea.
Right.
The birds apparently were flying through the fields of the scalar energy.
Oh, and then the sonic booms.
Well, what define blunt trauma? I mean, if you're a bird and you're flying, you're a little robin or you're a little blackbird and you're flying 1,000 feet up in the air and you suddenly die and you hit the ground at 300 miles an hour, yeah, there's going to be blunt trauma. So what blunt trauma are we talking about here?
Well, I should suspect that it occurred in the sky. Airlines have experienced this in the past. The one that keeps coming to mind is Alaskan Airlines flying off the west coast of California.
Mm-hmm.
They had repeated trouble with their aircraft. Engines would die, meters would go berserk, and it was simply flying through those scalar fields. There has been all kinds of phenomena over the United States in the past, and it's the people in the know it's flying through the radiation of scalar. The earthquakes that are occurring in Missouri,
yes.
Missouri and Arkansas and Oklahoma are pretty much in the same place.
Well,
and also the ones occurring in East Tennessee are scalar-induced.
Get this. It's part of the NLE exercise in 11 has to do with a earthquake along the New Madrid fault line.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's a lot of FEMA talk and paperwork and presentations dealing with a response to such a catastrophe. And yet we're seeing a lot of seismic activity down in that area. You know, so I find it rather odd or coincidental that we have that type of information coming out. At the same time, we're seeing these bird kills, the fish kills, and the seismic activity, the sonic booms, everything like that. I wonder if that isn't something to really just put it to that region of the country, you know, like the death blow, as if the Gulf oil catastrophe wasn't bad enough. You know, let's add a New Madrid fault line earthquake. That'd seal the deal, wouldn't you say?
Well, if you sever that line from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf of Mexico, then you fulfill a lot of prophecy of a lot of people. You have a large river separating the country. You put Louisiana and some of the other states completely underwater, and it's catastrophic. And it wouldn't surprise me. Actually, that fault line covers a lot of territory. I don't know if it officially goes all the way into the water at both ends, but that's probably the effect that you could have. Now, the Great Lakes are 600 feet above sea level, and Louisiana is at sea level. So it would be one heck of a wall of water coming down that fault line.
You think?
Can you imagine all of the Great Lakes emptying 600 feet above your head?
I mean, I couldn't imagine it. I mean, that's one of those things that's kind of hard to wrap your arms around, you know?
Cliff High's boat wouldn't do any good. It wouldn't be able to operate in that that wave coming at you.
No, it certainly wouldn't.
So that's what I really suspect is in back of a lot of the birds. I just haven't looked at the fish and all. It's almost like a non-issue. It's a curiosity, but why devote time to trying to determine who's killing the fish while time is running out on food storage and survival? It gets awful cold in the wintertime. Better stock up on blankets and chop wood and wood stove and all of that.
Isn't it interesting?
Quite a job.
Isn't it interesting that Bob Chapman, and I read it in his latest International Forecaster, he was talking about food prices and commodity prices doubling in the next year. Doubling.
Yes,
think
we see
about
the prices
how
going up.
catastrophic that is.
Yes, we see it every day.
Well,
and some items have easily gone into hyperinflation.
Right, but could you imagine on average everything doubling? I mean, it's bad enough now as it is. And
well, the boxes are getting smaller too. The prices are staying the same. So when they downsize the box all they can, they would have to start raising prices to cover transportation fees and manufacturing fees and all of that. It's going to be catastrophic. A lot of people are going to die. Haven't we been saying that for several years now?
Of course. It's amazing how, again, it's kind of like I've said in the past, though, Griff, unless it affects people directly, i.e., all of a sudden their food source dries up and they have no more food, or the NFL goes off the air, which is probably a little more catastrophic to most people than food. Then they'll understand, but then it'll be too late.
They may not understand.
They may not. But I'll tell you this, I truly believe that a lot of people are going to die because of their lethargy to accepting the fact that life cannot go on as we know it forever. It just can't do it. It can't do it. And isn't that funny, that John Moore on Sunday evening said that? He said, people expect it. They just think that they're going to wake up and there's always tomorrow. And, one of the things that I learned in my study of biblical prophecy was that was one of the greatest deceptions Satan had. Don't worry. There's always tomorrow. You can do that tomorrow, no problem. You just end up making compromises and putting things off time and time, day after day after day, because you expect that sun to come up the next day. You expect to be able to go to work the next day and to do everything the next day that you plan on doing. But the fact of the matter is there's going to come a day when that doesn't happen. And it's going to be a rude awakening for a lot of people out there. For everybody. It'll be a rude awakening for everybody. But some people are going to be more ready for it than others. I don't like to say ready. I'm a military guy. The old military saying is, you're never ready, you're always standing by. Don't ever say you're ready. Just say you're standing by. Because in the Navy, when you're up for inspection, the captain would ask, "Are you ready?" "No, sir, standing by." Because he would rail you. He'd grill you if you said you were ready.
I hear you.
So I mean, it's a very precarious situation that we're in. I think the environment is going to weigh on us heavy this year. John King, what do you think? As far as people and their growing seasons, the crops this year, what's your opinion on that, John? How do you think that's going to fare?
I think people are going to need to start growing some short season crops, purchase some heirloom seeds while they have the opportunity, as well as some soil, or learn how to grow hydroponically, and get ready to start growing your food indoors away from the effects of the persistent contrails, i.e. chemtrails, as well, because people walking through your backyard in the middle of the night that are starving, they're just going to raid your garden. So you're going to have to protect your crops in one way or another, and we're not going to have a very long summer. I can see it now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things fare, especially as we go into the spring, the summer season, the growing season, how things fare here, not only in the United States, but over in Europe, because Europe is getting just hammered right now as far as a winter's concerned. And I don't know if the trend is going to be the same as it was last year, John. I know that the summertime down in North Carolina was brutal last year. Brutal. I've never, ever been through. I mean, it's bad enough living in the Great Dismal Swamp. It's because you got humidity, you got bugs like crazy. I mean, that's bad. But you add that high humidity, and then you add 100 degrees every day for like 36 days straight. Good Lord, man. That's freaking hot. And the crops down here couldn't take it. I mean, the corn crops were decimated here because of that. So, I mean, when you say that we're going to be seeing a short growing season, do you think that we'll be seeing the heat that we saw last year?
No, I think we're going to have much cooler weather this year than we did last year. I think the South will be much wetter, and before the end of winter this year, you're going to see pictures of Florida orange trees with big, huge icicles weighing heavy on them.
Well, you know that's a technique that they use, John. They actually they mist them down. And
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I do know that they do that to protect the trees, but this year they're not going to have much of a choice. They're going to be doing it to save the farm, so to speak. And as far as the birds go and the fish goes, Joe, they know what's going to happen when all hell breaks loose. So what better way to kill off the natural food supply now so that those roaming bands of rogue patriots or whomever that's running into the woods don't have anything to eat or catch with their fishing poles?
Griff, do you think... Do you believe John Moore when he says that the Gulf had something to do with all this weather change?
No.
What do you think it is?
Not like that. I'm sure that the Gulf Stream has been affected, but I think it's something much more going on. Joe, are you at your computer? Does your computer work now?
Somewhat. It was crazy. It just started flashing and doing all this crazy stuff. I had to shut down and reboot. It was funny because when you guys said I was breaking up, what was happening is my Skype would connect for about 10 seconds and hang up, and reconnect automatically and hang up, and reconnect automatically and hang up, and I had nothing to do with it. I was like totally away from the computer, looking at it with my jaw open. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, all the people listening right now, Joe came under some massive computer attack during the interview with Bob Chapman. So that's why I asked you, does it work? I'd like for you, if you can do it
sure.
without disrupting anything, pull up that comment of William Cohen in 1997. I think William Cohen 1997 will bring it up. The comment about he made about modifying and changing weather and hurricanes and earthquakes and all of that. If you can read that paragraph, it's down in that body. If you can find it.
Yeah.
Maybe I've asked too much of you there.
It's tough. Hold on one second, because it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't
okay.
Quite...
Well, let's do that another time. William Cohen, Secretary of Defense in '97, put it on public record. And he talked about what's happening now with earthquakes and climate change. He said the terrorists now can alter climate with electromagnetic weapons, and he was referring to scalar. And that's what we've got. We've got climate change. The aggressive Soviet programs have been going on since 1960 over North America, especially,
right,
and other parts of the world. But now there's 10 nations that have the capability of doing that. But the Russian interferometer transmitters, funded by Japanese money in the beginning, Japanese mafia money funded the early days, and maybe even now, don't know, can modify, control weather, change the climate. And I rather suspect that it would be much easier and more probable that that's what's happening around the world, and certainly in Europe, than an abrupt blizzard because of the Gulf waters. I'm sure that probably the Gulf water will have an effect on weather, but I don't think it'll happen in one day or 1 week or 1 month. That's my honest guess on that.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too, Griff? The poles have started to shift. NOAA had a press conference, and the press conference was about solar activity. But somebody went and asked the question, well, is solar activity, and I'm just going to paraphrase here, but does solar activity, is it affecting the poles in any way? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And the guy said, well, actually, the poles have started to shift, and they're shifting at a rate of about 40 miles a year. The North Pole's going about 40 miles a year towards Siberia, and it's already causing trouble with, aircraft who use magnetic north. Magnetic north is moving, and it's increasing speed. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, but I can tell you as a student of history that every time there's been a pole shift, it hasn't been good for the human race.
I would say.
Joe, the pole is always moving. It's always in flux. It's
sure
because of the interaction between the Earth's magnetic field and the magnetic field of the sun.
Right.
The pole moves every year, irregardless. The only reason it's moving at such a fast rate now is due to the increase in solar activity caused by the galactic rift.
Mm-hmm.
There's no red planet. There's no Anunnaki. There's no super race of aliens that's going to come down and kick our rear ends. That's all distraction from the truth.
No, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. But I do think that in our travels through the galaxy, i.e. our solar system, and transiting the galactic plane of the galaxy, I think that exerts forces upon our solar system and our planet that can cause such an event to happen. And it's happened how many times in the past? I mean, I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you that it's happened at least 4 other times in the past where the poles have shifted up to 30 degrees.
Joe, what are we going to do about it?
I cannot do a doggone thing about it.
The only thing we can do is accumulate goods, food, bags of rice, things for the future to survive on for self and family.
That's right. And by the way,
it's profound.
12 years ago, Cohen said enemy states could use weapons that can create earthquakes. I have these. I'm going to put this up in the chat room right here. Anybody that wants to see this Cohen speech, by all means, have a look-see.
And he was Secretary of Defense.
He was Secretary of Defense in 1997 for Bill Clinton. So, I mean, yes, the technology is most certainly there. Whether it comes in the form of HARP or it comes in the form of scalar, it really doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it exists.
And he said so.
And he said so.
If you go the paragraph beyond that, he says it's real.
That's right. And if you Google search William Cohen 1997 terrorism, you can actually get the entire speech that this website here, this particular WordPress site, only paraphrases. It only takes like a snippet of it, and but it gives you the meat and potatoes. So, but if you want to see the whole speech, you can also look that up on Google, and it's readily available.
Joe, why would a person read that, ignore it, and then go back to Planet X, and things like that? It's all right there in the Secretary of Defense's statement.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to take it a step further. If indeed a planet such as Planet X is transiting and is close to us and going to pass through our solar system, would you not think that the forces exerted upon our planet would be so much more catastrophic? We have a moon that is so powerful that it regulates our tides. I mean, if the moon moves or is changed in any way, it'll totally devastate our planet. And yet, here's something, John King. What's the rumor that it's bigger than Jupiter or something like that, and it's going to pass very close to us? And well, then what the heck? And we don't feel anything? Not to mention the fact, how come nobody's seen it if it's so big? You know what I mean? You'd think some amateur astronomers by now would have said something.
Well, it would have perturbed the orbits of all the other planets. Mercury, if it's coming in from the southern plane of the sun, coming in from the backside, the first one to feel it would be Mercury and Venus, and then it would be Earth. There's nothing out there that's coming in. All of the astronomers throughout the world would have to be in on it, and you have thousands and thousands of amateur astronomers having telescopes pointed at the skies at night. They would all have to be in on it, and right. It would have to be a huge conspiracy, and I just don't see it. I think of it as a distraction, as a divider to the people within the community, so that way the mainstream thought can say, well, look at those guys over there wearing the tinfoil hats. They believe that the government is out to kill them, and they believe in little green guys that are going to come down and stick an anal probe up their rectum. Ha, 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 ha. And that's more or less to cast a little chuckle onto us and write us off as a bunch of whack balls. And that's just not the case at all.
Well, I'm open-minded, John. I'll tell you what. I'll listen to anybody, what they've got to say. If you can present a good argument and you can back it up with some fact, hey, I'm all about it. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't see it. I cannot, something's not jiving to me. And that's where I stand on it. Now, you can look at the ancient Sumerians and see that they talk about this in some way, shape, or form. But again, to Griff's point, what in the hell are we going to do about a brown dwarf star hurtling towards us? If that's the case.
Why even talk about it when the Secretary of Defense gave you the answer in writing?
Well,
people will always dismiss it, and they will go to different other ideas, but they will never come back to the Secretary of Defense's statement.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right.
I can't explain that. I don't know why they do that.
Gosh, people hear what they want to hear sometimes, Griff.
That's something else I wanted to mention. People do what they want to do.
Right.
I've been doing this now for 11 years. Every day of my life for 11 years. We've been looking at these issues and putting things out. 11 years, every day. That's a long time, and I've dealt with a lot of people in that time. And people have filled my computers up with questions. And I have told people, I will help you. I will do anything in my power to assist you in preparing. And here's what you do. And usually that's as far as it goes. People ask me for help, but they are not willing to listen. People ultimately do what they want to do, and I've experienced that how many times in 11 years, over and over and over. And you can see people making mistakes, and they will not listen because they are going to do what they want to do. They will not listen. They will jump to things like Planet X and shooting chemtrails out of the sky with argon energy and Hula Clark and all of this harebrained stuff, goofy as hell. And they will not accept fact. They will not. Yeah. And you can advise them. You can give them all the experience. Joe, I don't know of anybody out there that has as a diverse background as I do. I really don't. I've walked the back alleys, the gutters of life, and I've dined on crystal chandeliers, on crystal goblets and cups and chandeliers hanging over my head. with waiters standing around the walls. And I do what? Hello?
What's that?
We have under attack again.
Okay. Okay.
Can you hear it?
I can hear it. You know what? While you're under attack, let's go to the phones. I'm going to go to Rusty in PA. Rusty, you're live on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine.
Good. I was calling in because one of Griff's statements about Secretary of Defense Cohen's remarks about the weaponry, the weather weaponry and such, and energy weaponry. I have to go along with the fact that nobody does really pay attention to comments they tell you right, statements that the government makes right to the public directly. And I wanted to see if Griff was familiar with back in late 2004, between Christmas and New Year, so we're talking right before New Year's 2005, the CIA published on their own website. It wasn't classified. It wasn't secret. They published a two-part report over those 2 weeks of the holidays. It was about 80 pages each, and the subject, I don't recall the exact title at this point, but the subject was about where America is heading for the next 20 years, what their standing would be in the world. The first part of the report was all about economy. And it, in a nutshell, it basically said that over the next 20 years, America would be reduced to a third world nation economically. There would be no more middle class. And basically our only industry would be defense/police forcing of the world. And then in the second part of the report, they went into a great deal about the climate changes in the world and a new ice age, and that nations would be scrapping and warring over as millions of people in their various countries and regions around the world would be relocating due to climate extremes and lack of food and energy. And I was wondering if Griff had ever read this or knew about the subject, and if he had any comments about it. Because it seems like at this point we're here,
Question, Rusty, before we get to Griff. Are you talking about the project for the New American Century?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the PNAC document. This was a separate CIA report.
This was separate? Okay.
Yes, and it didn't really go into political players, parties, or anything like that. It really was just a matter of fact. It read like, it was kind of frightening because it read like just a white paper. And after I read it, I said to myself, they're not psychics. They're not like looking into a crystal ball. They write reports, well, typical, I guess, for the administration/White House and all, based on data points. And they are saying an awful lot of things about this 20-year period that we're now, 5 years into. I was trying to tell my friends about it back then, and nobody cared. And they said, well, just tell me what it is over the phone. I said, well, in a sentence, they're saying it's over for America, and we're entering a new ice age. And here we are in 2011, feeling the beginning of that, I think.
What do you think, Griff?
My audio is still distorted. No, I didn't. Let me back up a little bit. No, I didn't see the article.
Oh, okay. So
well, I thought it was interesting that they published it on their own website, and it was there for only about 4 weeks. And I can't tell you if, I'm not, although I do a lot of research, I don't usually do much research at government sites. I just kind of stay away from them. But I was just kind of curious why they would publish it for a month and then kind of make it go away.
Well, John King may have an answer to that. John, don't the powers that be, don't they have to make certain things known? Isn't that the way the business has to be? It's kind of like a bad Scooby-Doo episode, isn't it?
Yeah, they got to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. It not only fulfills their end of the bargain that they have with the dark side, but they tend to giggle. It sort of gets them off at the same time because it's the thrill of it. They got away with it. It's like oh no, you didn't.
to answer your question, Rusty, they may do it for sick, twisted reasons. The fact of the matter is you're absolutely right. 5 years ago, would you think that we would be where we are now?
I don't think. Well, being that we were kind of beginning to become weary with the Iraq War and the torture allegations, and nobody was really caring about that. When I read the report, I said, well, I can believe it can happen, but I didn't think it would so quickly. You know, if I had to believe anything about the report, I'd say that would be at the far end of the 20 years that they were looking into ahead. But, boy, I wouldn't think it would be this quick, you know, here where we are today.
No, you're most certainly right. And I for one, I'm not surprised by what you're telling me. But at the same time, I get asked quite often, well, what do you think? Are you one of those guys that believe in 2012? You know? And I tell them emphatically, no. I don't believe in December 21st, 2012. And the reason why I feel that way is because when you put a date on something, it's instant deception, because you're telling people something that chances are isn't going to be true. Now, does that mean it may happen on December 22nd? Yeah, it could happen next week. But the fact of the matter is we are in that time period. When it happens... Go ahead, Rusty.
Oh, well, I'm in agreement about the 2012 thing. I almost feel like that's...
They kind of pushed it on us, you know? At least that's the way I feel about it.
Have we lost him?
I think we lost him. Yep, we lost him. Boy, they are screwing with us hard tonight there, Griff.
Yeah, they are. And can you believe that this is happening in this country? Look what's happening to a radio program. They're deliberately messing up all of our audio and preventing people from listening to what we have to say.
I mean, look at poor Rusty from PA, man. He's just trying to have a phone conversation with us, and he gets cut off.
Yeah.
It was it's ridiculous. So let's see. Let's recap tonight on the radio terrorism that's going on tonight. Freedomlink Radio. My computer went haywire and caused me to have to reboot. Griff's Radio Shack phone is acting up, and poor Rusty. And I see you, Rusty, that you got cut off in mid-sentence. Yeah, and if you want to call back, Rusty, by all means, call back. But Rusty just gets cut off.
So they're very selective in who they come after.
It's sick.
Each one of us individually.
We're really small potatoes, man. You think about it. We're small potatoes. Why? That's the question that I always ask, Griff. Why us?
One time an attack came after. Can you hear me right now?
Sure, of course I can.
Am I cleared up?
Clear as a bell.
It was a lot of noise at my end. One time I actually caught them several years ago. A massive attack came after my computer, and we identified it came from White Sands Proving Ground. It came from the military at White Sands.
It doesn't surprise me, Griff. But
we got lucky and identified the source of it.
But the question is, of course, why?
Why? Yeah.
You know? Hey, Rusty, are you back with us, man?
Yeah, I called back in. I heard your invite, so I called back in.
Hot dog. Yeah, I want you to know that we didn't hang up on you. It was just like, Rusty?
Yeah, I figured that. Well, no, I was just saying, Joe, that I agreed with you about the 2012 date. I really feel, despite old civilizations, future things about calendars and such, I really feel that at least I think there's going to be changes that perhaps as old cultures we're seeing, but it's not the end of the world. However, I do think the powers that be really are using it almost like running a program, like you're being programmed to die type of thing.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think everything, it is a deception, and I don't think anybody listening to this is going to believe that's the end of the world, but if anybody
What do you mean by that, Rusty? What do you mean by end of the world?
I think that we'll wake up the next day and the world will still be here.
Do you think millions of people will die in the United States as a result of the actions?
As a result of the date, no. But as a result of
what's coming upon us.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think millions. I think, perhaps half of the population, perhaps more. I can't put a date on it. I feel dates are kind of irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to. You really don't. I mean, if you can't see what's already been happening and the measure of that, then you're not just asleep. You got to be dead with the 2012 crowd already. You know.
Sure. Absolutely. Griff and I were just talking about that today, and how frustrating it is. How frustrating it is to do this 2 times a week. And Griff's been doing it for 11 years straight. God bless him, because I don't know how the heck he's done it. And to do it, and people say that they're getting ready, and people say that they are preparing themselves mentally, physically, and spiritually, but they're not. if you know what I'm saying, because in the back of their head, in their mind, they're saying, you know what, there's always tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. And that's the problem, is that's the great deception, that, you know what, we're not in control, and that may not happen. You know, tomorrow may not come.
I'm kind of curious. We all know about the animal deaths, the bird deaths, fish deaths around the world. Any of us paying attention. But what about, like, casual friends or acquaintances that you're talking about? Do they seem to be aware of it?
Not a clue.
Yeah.
Not a clue. Although I will say this. A lot of my coworkers who know I research this kind of stuff did ask me, wow, what did you think about that? And I told them straight out. I said, I really truly think that they're using scalar or harp or whatever it is. Again, I can't put a name to it because there's just so many different projects and things that go on, and we know they can manipulate weather and pressure zones and the environment. And I just tell them, I said, my honest opinion is I think they're trying to manipulate the weather in such a fashion that it's causing collateral damage. And that's the way I feel. And I don't know whether it's to suppress some of the conditions that we're facing, to kind of ease us into it. Maybe there's some good people out there. I doubt it. But in the grand scheme of things, though, you had the sonic booms, you got the earthquake, you got the fish dying, the birds dying. It has all the hallmark characteristics of a scalar type of scenario.
Well, it's always been my opinion about any of these technologies where they're talking about HARP, scalar, chemtrails, or anything. If it was being done to help us or to save our world, that would be trumpeted to the high heavens.
Oh, absolutely.
To the public. And because most of it is not even acknowledged to begin with, and you're seeing the results of the technology on the climate, the people, and our health, and the animals of the world, I don't think you can see it for anything other than it is in basic evil and Luciferian. So I don't think we're going to know for a while. I think time has to run a little bit on this one about the birds. It was a little confusing that it seemed to be centered in the U.S. and then now we have all these other reports coming in around the world.
Right.
So it's a little we have to get some more data points on it. I have been in touch with I'll just say some people that get inside information. You probably associate with some of them yourselves, and we have some suspicions. We think there may be some connections with that gentleman who was found dead in a landfill recently. But right now it's all speculation, and we're going to have to give it some time to kind of put it together.
That's it. Well, thank you for calling into the show tonight, Rusty. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Good. Take care. Let's go to area code 630. 630, you're live.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
No sweat.
Appreciate you guys, too. I wish you guys were on more often. Yeah, Griff, you're awesome. 11 years of it. I appreciate it.
It's a long time.
What I was wanting to ask you guys is, with the global elite controlling everything, I know Mr. King said he thought sometime around after Valentine's Day. Bob seems to think 2 to 3 years. What's your opinion on them being able to every time they feel heat, just keep stalling things and slowing things down until someday my grandchildren are in the same situation we're in now.
Go ahead, Griff, take that one.
Well, I think we're going to be strangled by any number of things coming upon us. Just the inflation, or inflation turning into hyperinflation, affecting clothing and goods and food products, and lack of jobs, lack of money. That's enough to kill us right there. When jobs go down and money goes down and cost of living goes up, taxes go down. You're not able to pay your taxes. If you have a little money, you can't repair your house or your car, buy food, pay your taxes. When taxes go down, government's in an even worse situation. I do not believe Congress has the power to turn anything around. I don't think they can do it. It's the numbers are against them, unless they just repudiate all debt, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it can be turned around. I don't think it's going to last another generation. I think in the next months we're going to feel it, and certainly within the next year something's coming down. You have massive numbers of people out of work, no money, no food. Food banks are running out of food. So I think it's going to be relatively soon. Something is going to come upon us.
Well, thanks to you guys, I've been stocking up for a while now. So.
And what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is you got food.
How much food do you have stocked? How long can you go with what you have?
I have about 4 months for each person in the family, and there's 5 of us.
Well, so we're looking. We don't expect this thing is going to turn around in a year or 2 years. Right. I suspect it'll go the rest of our lifetime, and maybe another lifetime.
And I'm doing what I can, paying bills, but every chance I get, I'm buying more and more and more. And fortunately, I live in the country and have a mini farm, and I'm not counting any of that as what I have put back. So between hunting and fishing, and unless they find a way to destroy all that, when it all happens, I feel like I can protect my family.
And even if it does happen that way, you got to think that everybody's going to be going out and just killing every piece of wildlife you can. Yep. And soon after that, your wildlife population is going to be decimated, absolutely decimated. In that type of scenario, is that what's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know, but in a worst case scenario, you'd be looking at a road, that movie, The Road, right there, man, where it's just no food and clean water.
Then I don't know how anybody's going to make it unless they have, years and years of supplies and well underground or something.
Well, the government has planned to be underground with mountains of food.
Oh, they'll be able to grow their own. They've got indoor arboretums and everything else where they can grow their own crops on the ground.
And they built that with our labor, our tax money, for the politicians.
Yeah.
All over the country.
High-speed rail, connecting them all. Oh, yeah.
I want to say again how impressed I was with Bob Chapman tonight. Did you all out there in Radio Land hear what Bob Chapman said tonight? That was profound. I've never heard him say anything like that before.
Yeah, he's been a real firecracker lately, hasn't he?
Yes. I was very impressed with it.
Yeah,
and I agreed with him. But he certainly didn't want to talk about Wanta. Nobody does. When people talk about Wanta, they die.
Well, something, not to mention, but it's like you say, even if we do talk about it, what's it going to change?
Well, that's true.
What's
Self
it going
and
to change?
family. That's the only thing that's really relevant right now.
Exactly right.
It doesn't matter why the fish are dying or why the birds are falling out of the sky. It doesn't matter one bit.
No, because you have to stay true to the course that you're on, and if it's self and family, then stay true to it and just keep on plugging away.
That's right.
And the other thing that you have to do is, again, not everything is in your control, and with that, some of this stuff you're just going to have to let it go. You're going to have to let it go and let your faith take you through. And it doesn't matter whoever the heck you believe in, that's your prerogative. but I'm just saying that we cannot possibly prepare for every single scenario. And I always give the example of, I have 2 years of food, I have all the water and all the shelter that I just died of a heart attack. A lot of good that water and food did to me, did for me. So not every situation you can prepare for, but you can most certainly do the responsible thing for yourself and your family and get yourself as ready as humanly possible.
You reminded me to say something with your heart attack there.
Oh, sorry.
I've been meaning to do this for several weeks. I want to thank you for reminding me. I want everybody out there listening to me to try this, and please do it. Go out to a health food store and buy a big bottle of Bragg organic vinegar, apple cider. Bragg, B-R-A-G-G. B-R-A-G-G. It will cure acid reflux. We're hearing from people all over the country still suffering from acid reflux. The doctors are giving a medication that tend to go after the problem a little bit, but it does not cure it. Bragg apple cider vinegar will cure it immediately. And it will also do something else. It'll give you a sense of well-being. And I can't explain that, but I've experienced it again and again, a sense of well-being after you ingest even an ounce or 2 ounces of this Bragg, B-R-A-G-G apple cider. It's available at health food stores, a big bottle of it, a quart for $5.
Yeah, you can even order it online. You can order on. I just posted the link on the chat room. Anybody that has acid reflux, give it a shot. And you can't go to Walmart and get apple cider vinegar at Walmart and guzzle it and think that it's going to do it. For some reason, this particular brand does it, and I don't know what they do in their process, but it's
a miracle how it works. It really is.
And I can only say that because our guinea pig Griff is pretty good at taking that stuff.
Yeah, well, it takes a little doing to get it down your throat.
Yeah, nothing like swigging some apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, you can dilute it with water. Any way you do it, you have to get it down your throat, and it performs miracles. I promise you, and I'd like to hear from people that follow through with this. I promise you it'll be in your best interest to do it.
Well, folks, our next show is going to be Sunday evening, and don't have a guest yet, but I'm sure one will pop up between now and Sunday. So with that said, Griff, thanks for stopping by. And folks, thank you for coming out and listening. This is Joe Joseph. This is Freedomlink Radio. Have a pleasant evening.